how to drive impact at scale while speeding safely. And I basically see three discussion areas there. The issue of scale, and is impact at scale basically just doing the job, getting it out and it working, or is impact more than just implementing something successfully? And speeding safely, are those is security and impost on speed of movement? Does it always slow us down, or can we work hand in glove with the transformation, accelerating the transformation agenda and doing it securely? So those are sort of what I saw as the discussion points, really. Yes. There, Steve.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you would see as your that if we start with the issue of scale, and Steve, I'm a layman. I've had dialogue with people who run CIOs in police departments over the years, and what I'm aware of, this is an immensely challenging job. You have so many different stakeholders. You know, the uniformed police, the detectives, the forensic people, the people who do community policing, and scale implies you address all of them in some ways. So how do you handle scale in an organization as complex as police?
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. So I've only been in the role a year and I'm already very frightened. But the lens that I'm bringing to it is that digital transformation at scale is all about digital fitness, and that in a long game kind of a ongoing competition sense of fitness. It's not, and the problem in the way Victoria Police has historically tackled this is they've tended to think of it as a marathon, where it, intense training for a single event which has an end date, and that's just not the real world that we live anymore. And in terms of delivering innovation at scale to many, many different competing parts of the business, the only way to deal with that, in my experience, and I think this will work in Victoria Police, is just upping the speed and the cadence of delivery so that we can deliver more things to more people over the course of a year with whatever money and situation we have. It's kind of feeding the chooks kind of thinking.
Yeah.
But to do that, we need digital fitness. And what that's all about is just the ability, and it's really back to my platform plus agile type stuff. You cannot be digitally fit if it takes you 3 years from start to finish to execute a project. You just can't do enough projects in the time frames required. So we've got to be able to build a resilient, sustainable, repeatable way to deliver projects to a 3, 6, 9 month kind of cadence from start to finish.
And what I heard there, Steve, is the ability to do more projects quickly and fastly. Eventually you scale because there's the projects reach more people, you know?
No, exactly. And in this regard, I actually disagree with Peter Wheel's kind of the two graphs, arcing up, and because I'm absolutely believe that the best way is a stepwise, incremental, continuous innovation. Because that's all about speed in large organizations in terms of innovation is all about learning. And the way that we can innovate much, much more powerfully in large, complex organizations is just upping the cadence of the rate at which people are learning what works and what doesn't, and doing more things that work and less things that don't.
So that, in some ways, Steve, that's getting your project management effective. So it gets onto a project, they're well governed, people know what they're doing, timeframes are there, there's no sort of vagueness about what people are doing. There's clarity of the vision there, and that gives people confidence to work on things. But how much of the challenge I see in many organizations is once you start putting structure and content around things, people quickly see that as some sort of bureaucracy, which is an impediment to their initiatives and stuff like that. How do you handle that sort of pushback?
Well, we just have to tie it to money.
Yes.
So we're going through this at the moment, for example, where many things in the organization operate in a highly devolved manner. So everyone rushes off to their far corner of the empire and wants to establish their own little kingdom and do their own stuff. Now, once you start turning off the money taps for that kind of activity and say there's a big bucket of money here in the center, then actually that causes people to lean into a more of a planned, orchestrated process because they know they need to get money. And then that's not a few big buckets of money. That's a large number of small pieces of money which can be used to fuel innovation. And this is these high cadence kind of agile project delivery model. Yeah. So that's how I'm seeing it. It's not so in the first instance, you're right that an enterprise planning process can be perceived as a bureaucracy gone mad, and we'll plan and plan and plan and plan and plan and never do anything. But actually, if it's combined with a high cadence delivery intent and agile project delivery, then the purpose of the planning process is to aggregate demand so that you can assign money to it, so that you can get things moving.
Okay. Now that implies there, Steve, the engagement with stakeholders in an organization to win their trust, to give them, to maybe handhold them through the process initially, so they get confidence of it. But you've got a big organization. You can't do that with all the sort of key stakeholders. How do you determine where to spend your time?
Yeah, well, where the demand is and where the priority pressures are. So we've just actually going through a whole planning process now where we're doing exactly that. So we have an engagement team. They're reaching out to all the commands and departments to flush out their needs, their important things, to bring those into a central planning process, to get them all in a list, and then to allow a business-driven process through the executive command to make decisions about prioritization and timing and scheduling to the best we can, so that we have a program of work which is rolling on the 1st of July. That's the kind of aspiration. But it is I use the term feeding the chooks. Like you have to be mindful about the fact that I think of it as like putting gambling chips on a roulette like a roulette table. You could put all of your chips on, red, or all of half them on red and half on black, or you can scatter them around the table. And actually scattering them around the table, if it's mindful, is actually the best approach because it keeps as many rabbits running across the organization as possible. And given that, there are some big bets required regarding foundational platforms and big systems renewal, that's unfortunate reality. Then the feeding the chooks or spreading your bets around is actually the best way to create a sense of movement and digital innovation, which is widespread in the organization.
And I suppose that sort of that widespread impact means that people start talking about it. They notice it, and I suppose that's what you have to do to get attention.
And to get confidence. I use the phrase digital mojo. It's people lose their digital mojo when they kind of give up that it's all too difficult, nothing will ever happen, it all takes too long, and even when it does, it's no good. So got to rebuild their sense of mojo that it's worth leaning into this whole conversation. Okay. And that's what we're trying to do. But it's a long game, like it takes 2 or 3 years of budget cycles and a rollout of this before people really start to see something that they would say is a sustainable approach. So that's the journey we're on.
Yeah, right. The second part to cover was speeding safely. I mean, I can't help feeling, but security is going to be a paranoid area in a place like police. So people, I feel, would tend to err on the side of caution in that environment.
There's a great deal of concern, as there should be, around cybersecurity risks, information security, and privacy risks. So we're dealing with information which can genuinely lead to people dying if it ends up in the wrong hands. So, so security is a fundamental thing. We have embedded in our digital strategy, security by design is one of the early foundational kind of things. So before even we start talking about how we go about platforms or how we go about agile projects or data and information management, we talk about security by design.
Could you explain a bit more what is security by design in your mind?
Yeah, so it just means that rather than being something that is engineered in or bolted on after things are done, the thinking right from the first get-go has to be informed by the product cannot go into production or cannot be engineered until it is assured to be secured. And mostly that is about establishing security patterns and architectures and templates which are used as the default. So that the default way to build an application or to do something is already engineered to be secured. If the process is then automated through an automated DevSecOps continuous integration, continuous deployment kind of model, then it's actually, technically not possible unless you intervene in some negative way to put something into production that's not assured to be secure, because the entire process is automated once the decisions are made. And so that in that way, that is how you can combine making it secure with also traveling fast. But it takes an effort of upfront design, process definition, automation, tooling to establish that environment. The reality at the moment is this kind of false sense of security of things being on-prem and things being, let's just say, slow and careful. And neither of those processes assure security. In fact, rather the opposite. Normally things have security threats built into them because things being on-prem encourages a kind of cottage industry, everything a little bit different depending on who's doing it. And the slow and careful kind of, thought process just actually over-engineers things so that they become complex. And when they become complex, they become risky. Nobody understands them, and they have security vulnerabilities embedded in them that nobody even is aware of, and that's historically the case. Like in Victoria Police, there is a deeply, deeply frightening thing that has happened, not to us, but in the Victorian public sector, which is that Fire Rescue Victoria had a cyber security incident in December where they were their systems and data were encrypted in a ransomware attack. It's now, what is it, June? They are still substantially out, all of their core systems. They've rebuilt an email system, they've rebuilt a payroll system, which was fortunately in a cloud service, and all of their other systems and infrastructure are still a work in progress.
Is that public knowledge?
Yes,
it is. So it's not. If we say it, we're not sort of disclosing any privacy breach or anything, because I think that's quite a scary prospect for some people. To think, the whole security of a state that was ravaged by bushfires less than 3 years ago, system's not working properly.
That's right. So the systems are still. They're still basically coordinating fire operations on radios and mobile phones.
Okay.
A variety of interim kind of setup, whilst they're rebuilding all of their core systems.